Hello, good afternoon, happy travelers, and welcome to another edition of Awkward Travel Chats. This is episode number 4. I am Kelly, and this is Kevin, and we are the team behind the Awkward Tourist. And if you're not following Kevin at Kevin Lacey Photo, you should head over there and do that right now.
Thank you so much. So we are doing these talks every week to share some travel stories while we're all on lockdown and not able to travel, and also give you some tips for when it is safe to go ahead and travel to these destinations. So this week we are going to talk about a trip that we took in 2016 to Easter Island.
You guys chose this trip, and we're so happy that you did because this is probably one of our favorite trips that we've ever done.
Yeah, it was really awesome.
This was before our Instagrams and before our YouTube and before everything, so there's not a whole lot of online record of us doing this trip, which is kind of sad, but also kind of fun.
Yeah, it was a different time, but it was really just an amazing exploration. So if you don't know Easter Island, it is an island that is in the middle of the South Pacific Ocean. It's actually part of Chile. The best way I can really describe it is it's kind of like the Hawaii to the US of Chile.
So the way that you get there is you fly to Santiago, and there's one flight every day to Easter Island, or Rapanui, as they call it, on LATAM Airlines, so the South American Airlines, or at least when we went in 2016, there was one flight a week to and from Tahiti. I don't know what it is now, especially during coronavirus, but I know they at least have the one, oh my gosh, bleh. I know they at least have the one flight a day to Santiago. So that's what we did. We went from the US to Santiago, and then it's about a 5-hour flight over the ocean to this one little island in the middle of nowhere.
It's super remote. It's 1,300 miles from the next closest landmass, and it's only 64 square miles big. So it's a really tiny island. The way that it's so famous is because of the giant heads that were carved on this island. They're called moai. I'm sure you've seen pictures of them, even if you don't really know what a moai is.
They're the dum-dums from Night at the Museum.
That's what I was just going to say.
Movie.
Yeah, absolutely. So
that's pretty much the reason why we went. Actually.
Yeah, I put a picture of Easter Island that I think I cut out of a Nat Geo magazine when I was like probably 12 years old, and I hung it in my room, and it stayed up there throughout all of high school, and I just always thought it would be so cool to go there. And it was one of like the most remote, kind of almost craziest, unattainable places that I could think to go. And
like one of those bucket list places that you're like, oh well, that's too exotic.
Yeah, such a dream that like I'm gonna dream big, and I'll probably never get there. But when Kelly became a flight attendant, we found out that there was a way to get there, and we went for it and had a really easy time with flights, which is kind of crazy because there's so little flights going to this place. But we non-revved without any problem, and even got first class on the way there, which was really awesome.
I mean, you can do it. It's just an expensive flight to get out to the island, and then once you're there, that's all there is to do there. You can't like island hop or do anything else because
no, it's just
on its own.
Just the one island. There's nothing else near it, and we spent 4 days.
Yeah, we spent about 4 days there, which is pretty much the perfect amount of time because it's really small, and by the end of the 4 days, we were like, well, there's nothing else to do. We've done absolutely everything you can do on this island.
Yeah, it was the perfect amount of time. I don't think any more would have been really all that great. But the island itself, aside from these incredible statues, which is why everybody goes there, is really cool. It's got a South Pacific vibe to it, so it's kind of Polynesian. There's lots of reggae music, but it also has a huge cultural South American Chilean vibe to it too. So you're like,
because it's part of Chile,
and
so you're always eating empanadas, and everybody speaks Spanish, but the landscape is
crazy.
It's part of the South Pacific technically, but it wasn't like French Polynesia. It was more what we kind of describe it as a warm Scotland.
Yeah, really rocky coastline, kind of turbulent seas. There really wasn't much beach access at all. There was a lot of like lava rock and cliffs.
Yeah, very volcanic.
Very, very volcanic.
Kind of like, I don't know, maybe like the Faroe Islands or the Azores.
It felt like it should be a lot colder than it was.
Yeah, but it was warm.
But it was warm and nice and tropical.
It wasn't too warm. We were there in June, and the weather was cool.
Yeah.
I would say it was mild, windy and mild.
Yep. Flying in was quite an experience because, like Kelly said earlier, there's only one flight a day, really, and it's a really tiny airport. There's only one town on the entire island, and the town's name is Hangaroa, and it's really sleepy.
They're definitely on island time.
Yeah, I mean, there's like one gas station, like one ATM. There's not much going on.
No, we had quite the adventure trying to book our flight back.
yeah, that was crazy because the internet service wasn't great, and we had to like go into it like a travel agency and like
do it in person
at like a certain time, and it was kind of wild.
So we got there, and I don't know if you know this about us, but since we fly standby, we don't often have accommodations booked, at least for the first night. Well, we didn't book anything for when we got there because since there was only one flight a day, there wasn't any other chance. But we ended up getting the first flight. We got there the first day, and we landed with no idea of what we were doing or where we were going.
No, it was pretty crazy, and we both don't speak Spanish very well, so we kind of communicated where we wanted to go. I wrote down just a few hotels that looked okay, and by hotels I mean they're more like guest houses. They weren't really.
They have some hotels. They have a really cool eco lodge that's out there, and since there's only one flight a day, the hotels pretty much just come the one time and pick up everyone who has a reservation. So
and there's no public transportation or anything like that. So we ended up we ended up badly communicating to somebody that we needed to go to one of these hotels, but we didn't have a reservation. And I think we hopped in the back of a van and they drove us to there. It was like, oh, this isn't my place, but it's my cousin's place, totally like a little island community kind of situation.
We kind of just hopped in this van like, okay, take us wherever.
Yep. And got to this little guest house, which was really basic but super nice. And it was really cool because it's very, very much in the country, and you'll have dirt roads and different things. But a lot of places on the coastline, you'll have these giant statues of these moais, and a lot of times they'll be on sort of a raised platform with multiple moais across it, and those are called ahus. There's all sorts of different ahus around the island, and I think they said that there was like 1,000 moai statues on the entire island. A lot of them have fallen down, but a lot of them are preserved, and you can kind of go see them in the way that they were before.
So one of the things that makes Easter Island so interesting is that, number one, it's so remote, and number two, it has these gigantic moai that are made out of a single piece of stone, and the tallest one, I think, was like 60 feet. So they're huge and heavy, and researchers really don't exactly know how they were made and transported across the island. Mm-hmm. They know where they were made, but the places that they transported them to were miles and miles away. So there have been Mythbusters and Discovery Channel episodes about how they possibly, it's kind of like how they made the pyramids. Like, they don't really know hundreds of years ago how these statues were transported miles across this island.
And they don't really know why they made them either, which is kind of interesting. So they all look inland. None of them look out to the sea. And there's theories that it's ancestors that are kind of looking over the people that are still on the island. Each tribe across this island had their own different moais that they kind of made in their little communities.
Yeah, and they kind of made like, my moai is bigger than your moai.
Yeah, there's definitely like a the bigger and the more moai you made, the more powerful your tribe was. But they look straight up like aliens. Like, they don't really look like weird people, so they're really, really crazy to see.
Cool.
It's really super cool. And some of them are in the water and have fallen over. And
they would, when the tribes would fight, they would go like push each other's moai over, and that was like the ultimate sign of disrespect.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting that way. I saw this Discovery Channel show where they tried to figure it out, how they moved them, and they actually like tied these ropes and they were stood upright, and they kind of moved it like this, so the moai actually walked with these ropes. And they figured out that they could actually move them that way as long as they didn't tip over.
Yeah.
Which was very interesting.
It should also be said that all of the moai came from this one quarry that's in the middle of the island. It's kind of like a little volcanic basin, and you can go to this spot, and there's 400 moai that are still around this area. And some of them are still being carved out of the volcanic rock of the sides of this crater, which is really cool. So they built them all there and then would move them to different parts on the island.
But back to our trip.
Yeah.
We're getting a little sidetracked. It's very interesting. Part of the reason we went there, or pretty much the whole reason we went there.
Yeah.
We got dropped off at this guest house that had a whole bunch of little bungalows on a ton of property that was just like this big grass field.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up staying at this guy's place. You know, we kind of negotiated a rate, and it had a little kitchenette.
Yep, little kitchenette. I think we packed a little bit of food with us.
Yeah, which is something we do a lot just to kind of keep costs down. Mm-hmm. And we ended up renting a scooter, or like a Vespa moped kind of thing. And that was, I mean, you could rent a car, but you didn't really need to. Like, the island is so small that you could get around on a scooter.
Yeah, there's not that many roads either, and there's not really that many places to go. I know people that did the whole island on a bicycle, which was a little aggressive, but you could do that. We drove to the farthest part away that we could, and I think it took us about 20 minutes on a scooter. So it's really not that big of an island, and the scooter was fine to get around.
Yeah, we like renting scooters. It's a lot easier in foreign countries.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we did that. The guest house was about, I'd say, like a quarter mile away from the Hangaroa town. So it was walking, maybe a little further, maybe half mile. But it was within walking distance of the town, so we went in to have meals and do whatever we needed to, rent the scooter and do what we needed to do there.
One thing that was kind of cool, and you'll see this a lot when you travel, but there are a lot of feral dogs and cats, but they were all super, super friendly and well kept. Like, none of them looked mangy or anything like that. And of course, Kelly made friends with all these animals, which she always does when she travels. And they would end up following us around. And one, I even remember, we walked from dinner one night back to our hotel room, and this dog slept on our porch right in front of our door the whole night and was up there in the morning.
It was so sad. Yeah. I was like, I need to take him home.
Yeah, she even had a cat that she could call by name that would run over to her and come get pets, and it was it was pretty funny. So we made nice little memories with all these animals.
I like the animals better than most people.
Yeah.
No offense to the people.
Yep. So a few more things that were kind of cool. We explored a lava tube that was just outside of town, and that was pretty neat. It was a really dusty, dirty road. I don't even think we took the scooter out there because it was a little aggressive, if I remember correctly.
Well, how else did we get up?
I think we walked most of the way, but we did this trip in 2016, so our memories are a little hazy on some of the details.
Have quite the amount of video footage as we do for our most recent trips.
Lots of photos, but that was kind of a cool site. We went and checked out this lava tube. It had a really small opening that was a little sketchy to get into, but then it opened up right away, and it led out to this big viewpoint over the sea that was probably like 100 feet up on the cliffs. It was really neat to see that. And of course, there was a dog that just randomly came with us during that time.
We went out to the quarry where they made all of them, and that was one of the places that you had to pay to get in.
Yeah, you can get a pass, and I honestly don't remember if it was this way when we were there. I looked it up just this morning when I was kind of trying to remember a few details, and it said that you can get a pass for 10 days that gets you into all the sites around the islands, all the archaeological sites, and it was about $80 US. And I really don't remember if we had to do that or not, but
I think we did, but I don't know if it might have been like 60.
Yeah, and there's 2 or 3 sites that are pretty, what am I trying to say? They're
significant.
You can only go to them one time. Sorry, I had a total brain fart there, but The quarry you can only go to once with this pass, and then the Orongo Village, which we'll kind of get into a little bit later, is one of the other spots that you can only go.
So the quarry that we went to, there are designated paths, and there are kind of the iconic moai where you see them kind of falling over. You have to stay on the pass. They're really, really strict about that. The rest of the island, you can pretty much almost go all the way up to any moai. Like, you're not allowed to touch them or climb on them or anything. They're really strict about that.
They don't want you to go on the ahus, the little raised platforms. That's actually considered part of the moai, which a lot of people don't realize. It's not just the statue itself that's kind of sacred to the islanders,
But the rest of the island, you can get really close to them. But at the quarry, it's kind of like a national park protected site. You can go around and you can get a lot of really great photos there. But you can also hike kind of into this crater where they were actually made, and you can see some of them like where they were carved out of the rock, like moai shaped holes.
Yeah.
And also some of them that were just left half done.
Yeah.
Like there would be eyes and a nose in the side of the mountain, or like half sticking out of the mountain. It was really, really cool.
Yeah. This was one of the biggest archaeological sites too, so they dug down to the base of some of them, which was really interesting because you see these heads that stick up, but what you don't realize is it goes down twice as far.
Yeah, it was really,
to the
really
base, which was kind of cool.
And just next to the quarry is the Tongariki site, which you also have to pay to get in. And you've probably seen a picture of this. It's the long line of moai. They're all standing in one line that look inland, and I think, where would it be sunrise that would be really nice on that side of the island?
Yeah, a lot of people would go to that spot specifically for sunrise photos.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. I do have some cool old photos from there. Yeah. Or I'm posing like this.
There was also wild horses that ran around these two areas, which was
cool.
pretty cool. So that was just a really surreal experience. At one point, we were just kind of walking around and looked up, and there was just like maybe 4 or 5 wild horses in full gallop running around in between
like
these
a herd of
these
wild stallions.
Yeah,
it was magical
with these crazy moai heads. It was really really insane.
There was a cool beach. I guess would that be on the northern end of the island?
Anakina
Beach. Yeah, and that was Polynesian vibe, kind of more. It looked more like a tropical beach. Like it had palm trees and white sand, and it was really nice. Still not super tropical and warm, but it was really pretty. And they, of course, had moai there. They have moai freaking everywhere on this island. By the end of our trip, we were like, I want to see another moai.
Yeah, they were literally everywhere. If you drove along, there's a road that goes all the way along the coast, you would just see hundreds of them. And most of them aren't in really nice, fenced off areas. They're just kind of falling over and
just in disrepair, just on the beach or just on the side of the road, whatever. It's kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. There's also some archaeological sites.
It was actually on the other side of the airport strip from the town, and it's called the Orongo Village, which was
we had to look this stuff up.
It was
4 years ago.
Yeah, we don't really remember. It was the biggest crater on the entire island. It was a pretty good drive to get up to it, really high up on the cliffs, and there was a settlement up there, which was all these stone houses that were kind of set into the hillside a little bit.
And that was after the tribes that built the moai, but before the Christians came in and converted everyone to Roman Catholicism or whatever.
Yeah, and this is kind of a crazy story of what this area meant. They kind of refer to it as the Birdman cult, which is kind of crazy, but apparently there was this festival or this religion that was around getting this one egg from this little islet that was, I don't know how far it was off the edges of the cliff.
So there were these birds called sooty terns that only nested on this one tiny little islet that was off the coast of Easter Island, and they'd only nest at a certain time of year, and these tribes or groups or whatever, they would send their...
It was like a really important, high up person in society that would have the honor of going and trying to get this first egg of the season.
The men, like the highest ranking men of the tribes, and they would swim to this island and try to get the first egg of the city turns
and
when they came.
These waters are treacherous. You know, there's like sharks, huge waves when we were there. It's not like an easy thing to do. Big, huge 100-foot cliffs. You know, so it was a pretty crazy feat just to swim out to this island. But they'd go climb up to get this egg and like race back with this egg. And if you won,
I don't think it was 2,000 feet.
Yeah, I looked it up this morning. That's what I said. But if you won, you would be put into like a celebration isolation for a year.
Yeah, you'd have the honor of being in isolation for a year.
Yeah.
It was weird.
It was kind of crazy.
Or the story was weird, but the archaeological site was really cool. And then there's this huge volcanic crater that, like, you can tell is just a big crater in the earth. And it's got, like, a lake at the bottom, or water at the bottom of it. And you can look from rim to rim. It was just kind of a very surreal experience to be standing on the rim of this huge crater where obviously the earth just completely blew up at one point.
Yep.
It was very cool. We ate a lot of empanadas. They have a lot of empanadas in the town. It was just it was a real juxtaposition of cultures with the Polynesian vibes and the Chilean influence and the landscape being kind of rugged and like Scottish, Irish, kind of that volcanic and green. It was really, really unique. I definitely recommend 10 out of 10 recommend going to Easter Island if you ever get the chance.
Yeah, 4 days was perfect. I don't think we really needed any more time than that. You know, we would have definitely got bored. But if you like history and, you know, want a really crazy island experience that's really not like any other place in the world.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there are Ancient Alien episodes about Easter Island.
Yeah, and we love that kind of stuff, so we definitely wanted to go and check it out.
Yeah, it was a unique trip that not a lot of I don't think I've ever met anyone else who went to Easter Island.
No, I haven't.
No.
It's really out there, so you gotta really want to go. But
yeah, so that was our experience with Rapanui. Like I said, definitely recommend going there if you ever get the chance. Would you like to add anything else, my darling?
I don't think so. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully when it's safe to travel again, you guys can make a trip to Easter Island.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit the thumbs up and smash that subscribe button, which I guess is what I'm supposed to say, right? Anyway, subscribe to The Awkward Tourist. That would be amazing. And we will see you next week at 4 Eastern for another Awkward Travel Chat.
All right. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Stay safe.